Let me know if you feel this spiritual.
Welcome everybody to the UNnormalized podcast. This is your host Frankie A. And today I am joined with a really level-headed, motivated young gentleman by the Frank. Just so I don't butcher your last name, it's Catania, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm joined today with Frank Catania. You may know the Catania name by, if you follow reality television, the Catanias are a family that we see. They're my favorite family on any of the Real Housewives series. So the Catania family we see all the time on Real Housewives of New Jersey. And today I'm joined with Frank Catania. So Frank, welcome to a Normalized Podcast.
Thank you very much, Frankie. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. So we see a little bit about your family. Well, we see a lot about your family on the Real Housewives of New Jersey. But, I want to focus on you because you got a lot of great upcoming things coming up. And so tell us a little bit about who Frank is and growing up in the Catania family. We're Jersey boys. We have that in common. So tell the people out there what it's like growing up in an Italian family here in Jersey.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Jersey called North Haven, but spent most of my time in the neighboring town, which is Franklin Lakes, North Haven. My parents gave me a beautiful childhood. I learned a lot, especially growing up in a Italian family. I learned, values that as I get into the real world, I see, oh my gosh, it's rare to find these values. So I'm very, very lucky that I was able to be given a very good example from the family that I grew up with, both my mother and my father's side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely fantastic. I grew up playing football, and I think that was definitely the first indication, that I had a gift for, I'd say visualizing things. Like, I'll never forget in second grade, I was always a small kid. I really never had any size to me until junior year of high school. I remember I wanted to be one of the good players on a team. And at a very young age, I already had an understanding that I had to work very hard to do that. But what I did was, my father told me, he said, you should need to visualize what you want to be and create it.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all about, I work in social work. So a part of what I do is I tell people exactly that. Like, you have to have a vision, you know what I mean? You have to have a plan in your mind so you can kind of visualize the steps that you need to kind of get there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I did. I ended up becoming a pretty good football player. I played football up until sophomore year of high school when I had to go out to LA to film a movie. Mm-hmm. Called The World Away, which we'll definitely get into later. That was a whole other experience in itself. And I got back, and I realized, I was too small to play football anymore, and I was also busy with my new acting career. And that definitely hit hard because I was always, a great player going up to 8th grade, and I fell behind in size, which is like the size I was a skinny kid, So that's what really opened up a serious bodybuilding world for me. Of course, my father, too, who gives me the best gift any father could give their child, which is to believe in me.
Yeah.
He pushed me into the bodybuilding world, and that's where I learned a lot about myself. I grew mentally, physically, and I just became a stronger person. And as I progressed in life, I realized that my true passion, believe it or not, I think a lot of people who are in business have passion for the arts. I was in the arts having a true passion for business and bodybuilding.
Yeah. I totally agree. And, that's what we talk about here in the UNnormalized podcast is having, it's one thing where, a lot of people, I don't want to say it's easier, but, a lot of people kind of, just think about taking the softer, easier route in life and we here at the UNnormalized podcast like to talk to people about, there's so many other life journey paths that somebody could take and not have to go the conventional route. So that is basically the epitome of what a normalized podcast is about. Besides pop culture stuff, when we sit down and I talk to people, I want to know what goes on with people when they're talking about life journeys and what kind of, passion, desires, dreams. Everybody has them, but not everybody has the courage to kind of act on those things to make it into their life. You know what I mean? Some people do it on the side, some people do it as like a hobby, but it's one thing when you take those things and you say, this is going to be my life, and it's pretty cool that, it's actually funny, what, Frank, I've been doing this for like a couple of months now, interviewing people, and I can't tell you the amount of people that I speak to, and, I got some pretty big names coming up, but people who still, like, do all those things outside of the box that are unnormalized, but keep a solid foundation in doing stuff like the 9-to-5 work, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, what's that like? How do you juggle and how do you manage the balance between your dreams and your goals and your desires in both of those realms, being in the creative side of things and then, working towards your other passions that are like in finance and in business?
Yeah. It's a great question, and I love what you said. It seems like you have a really good understanding of the passions, honestly, which I think is what drives people's lives for those who have them.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to balancing things, I'd have to say I was not good at it when I was young. I would get sidetracked with one thing to the extreme. Not sidetracked, but I focused on one thing to the extreme. When football season came around, I was obsessed with football, and which is okay when I was little. But as you get older and grades start popping up and everything, and it gets harder. Or as I get older, I'm obsessed with whatever romantic relationship I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with it. And I learned as I got to college, it's time you got to fix that and balance things if I want to be the person I want to be. So I started to take one thing at a time. Each assignment I took at a time, each workout was one thing at a time. And I think one of the best things for mental discipline that you could have, obviously mental discipline I think runs the world, is focus oscillation, which is being able to take your focus from task to task, put it all into one task, and when that task is over, take it and put it into the next task.
Yeah, totally agree. Like carry it over, because you from task to task. I love that idea. From task to task, you learn things along the way on that task that can be carried over and utilized as a skill for the next task that you have to complete. I love that because I think some people, especially young people, you know what I mean? I'm a little older, so you guys live in a very fast-paced, ever-changing, evolving, quick, you got to be on your toes type of, world. So it's easy to get caught up in trying to do everything and trying to do everything all at one time and trying to do everything all at one time with 100% vigor and focus and determination. It's hard, you know what I mean? So I like the fact that you're sending out there to maybe some of the younger listeners that are listening to this podcast that you got to focus. You got to kind of take each thing as it comes and learn along the way from the path and the journey of completing that task, because you have to stay centered and stay focused. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly, Frank. I completely agree, and I'm happy you understand definitely what I'm saying, but I'll definitely tell you this and be honest with you, that what I just mentioned is something very difficult to do.
Sure.
It's very difficult, something I need a lot of work on still. I've gotten a lot better at. I used to be a mediocre student in high school just because I had so many different things going on. Exactly what I said. I wasn't focused enough on the grades aspect. I was going back and forth to LA for acting, and also I was obsessed with business. I mean, I had a sandwich business in high school. I would sell sandwiches out of a suitcase.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk about getting your hustle and your grind on, huh?
Yeah. I remember, that's junior year of high school. I remember I just wanted to start a business so bad.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was, I went to an all-boys high school called Bobsco Prep, which is a great place. It was a very special place. And you got a bunch of kids there, and I'll tell you, when you get all boys together, not around girls, it's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
A whole different experience, because even when we would go to the games, I'd see half the kids I went to school with personalities change.
Mm-hmm.
Like when we went and the girls were around, a lot of people, some didn't, but their personalities changed. So it's nice when you have an all-boys school. These kids just kind of open up and they be themselves because they're not trying to impress anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a nice place. So what I did was I found out everyone, loved to eat there. A bunch of young boys, they like to eat. I would start making peanut butter and fluff sandwiches, and then fluff sandwiches with Oreos. That was cookies and cream. I made an Instagram for it. I would put them in a roller suitcase, and I would go around selling for $1, $2 a piece. And initially, before I became a car salesman when I was 17, that was my first bout of money I made to start investing.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was the first little bit of money I made to start investing. It was nice. I had my own money, and it's nice to be able to take someone on a date. You could pay for it, and you had
your pocket money, and it was something that you were proud of because you earned it. It's not something that like mom and dad, was like, here, put some dollars in your pocket, take.
A lot of people have this false notion about me that I come from this family. My parents never really handed me anything, but what they always did do, which I think every parent should do, but obviously it's very hard to do, and my parents do on another level, which makes them the best parents in the world, is they do whatever they can to provide the opportunity for me, and then it's my responsibility to seize that opportunity. But
exactly, and like I don't know your family just from what I see on on the show. But what I take away, and I think a lot of people take away when they see your family, is, and which why I said makes your family, out of all like the reality TV show families that we see out there, you can genuinely see that your parents came from a hard-working, put their time in, kind of down-to-earth family, and just in the 15 minutes that I'm talking to you, it seems like they bestowed that upon you to, if you want to make your way out there, I love it. I'm a parent. I have a 17-year-old, and I have the same philosophy. I'll provide you with all the opportunities that I possibly can as a parent, but then it's up to you to get out there and to take that opportunity and develop it into whatever you wanted it to be. Just give it 100%. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I get that sense from your family when I see them on TV that they are a hardworking family. You know what I mean? I see your mom, I see your dad. They're always involved in, your mom was she either a police officer or a corrections officer?
So, my mom was a corrections officer.
Gotcha.
There's a whole other story to excite my whole, what my mom went through, which a lot of people don't know about. Honestly, probably this will be one of the first times, because I'll say it, because she's very humble about it, but I will say it. My mother grew up in an extremely poor environment, but her father was a hardworking cop, and my grandmother was they're both the best grandparents I could ever ask for. She was a waitress at like a catering home. Okay. But it was hard, it was hard because it was a family of 5 kids and 2 smaller paying jobs. It was very hard. They had a special childhood when it came to having each other and learning the values of growing up in that environment, which makes it very special. And I think they would never trade in for anything. But so my mother grew up in that environment. She's working since she was 16 years old. Graduated high school. College wasn't even a question. Was not going to college. And she went to go work as a hairdresser at a salon. And then after that, she met my father. My father, when they first met, my father hadn't become anything yet. He was just he was older, later 20s, but just getting into his real estate. He was just getting into being a successful lawyer, so he really didn't have much yet. And it was cool because you hear about a story about them. It's like they didn't have much, but they had each other.
Yeah.
And you still see that in them today.
Oh yeah, I think that's totally cool that we don't get to see. I mean, not just on TV, but just in life in general. I mean, like you hear of so many people who go their separate ways or whatever. But your parents, you can tell like the bond that they have, which is totally awesome to see. You know what I mean? Like as parents that are raising their children and have come up through some struggles. It's refreshing to see that they have always kept a strong bond together, like they have each other's backs, which is I think will probably spill into your own life and how you formulate not only just like romantic relationships but just even in business. You know what I mean? That you want to keep those ties that keep the relationships and where you're going and propelling forward, fruitful ones. So, I totally love the fact that you say that, they didn't have anything, they didn't have much, but they had each other, because sometimes that's what kind of moves you forward through those kind of challenging stages in like life. You know what I mean? Maybe that's something you'll find when you get a little older and you go that route. But so totally love that. So go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I'm happy because it's good. It gives a lot of insight in what I said. I mean, what you are saying, Frankie, I love listening to. Obviously, you're a great speaker. You're a great speaker, and you have some great points. So I understand why a lot of people like this podcast, from what I've heard. So,
thanks.
Yeah, of course. So my mother, to go on with her life, she then became a corrections officer, ultimately a police officer in Patterson, New Jersey. It's a very hard place. She's extremely tough. But you had my sister, and once you had my sister, my dad was in a position where my mom was able to kind of just be a stay-at-home mom in North Haledon. And that's when, now this transition I find absolutely amazing about my mother. That's when my mother, so I went to school in a wealthier town, so my mother started to see, I think, what that life was like.
Mm-hmm.
Because we live in North Haledon, but Franklin Lakes is next door, and we grew up in Franklin Lakes, and she started to see what that was like. And what happened was, I think she instilled in me was, listen, like there's a great life you can live. There's a great life you can live. You make sure that you want to be able to afford things for your family one day. You want to be able to do that, so you always got to work hard. So that started there. Now my mother is living a nice life with my dad. My dad's making good money. She's living a nice life. Next thing you know, they get divorced. My dad's great. Still keeps in touch with us, and we see him all the time. And he takes care of us financially. But my mom also met a guy, a great guy. His name was Andrew, and Andrew was a oral surgeon. And we moved to Franklin Lakes, the house in Franklin Lakes. He was a nice guy as well. So he kind of took over things as well. But before that, we hit a very rough patch, I think, like a lot of people in 2008, when the economy went under, the housing crisis. And my mother went from that, living that lifestyle and being around all those wealthy people. What she did was, she had to go be a surgical technician, get a surgical technician's license, and work as a bartender at night.
Wow.
So I was a young kid who would see my mother every day. I probably slept with my mother till I was 11 or 12. I think that's like how Italian boys do it. Yeah. So I went from seeing her all the time to not really seeing her much at all, because she was working constantly, to provide for the family. My dad was too. my dad was too, and my mom went right to work in that situation, and we saw a lot of other families in the town, and they were drowning. These families were drowning because they don't know how to get slapped in the face and bounce back.
Yeah, and pull yourself up from the bootstraps, and
exactly,
and get have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. I think I grew up in the Ironbound section of Newark, so Italian family. So my family is basically you're kind of talking about, like, this is like a tale of two Franks, because you're kind of talking about how a lot of my parents weren't divorced. They stayed together, God bless them, but they're basically was the same type of situation where they came from nothing, and kind of my dad made something of himself. He went from playing football in Eastside High School. That was his thing. But he was
classic. I mean, that's classic. Yeah, of course, Eastside High School. It's classic.
Yeah. So he played. He was a street kid. You know what I mean? Grew up in the streets, and football was his thing, and he really didn't have a desire to go on to the college life or anything like that. He had no direction. He basically was kicked out of his home at an early age, moved in with my parents were dating. My mom basically was like, this kid has nowhere to go. She went to my Italian grandparents, picture this, and said, he can't live on the street. So my grandmother took him in. My grandfather wasn't too happy about that, but my grandmother said, the only thing that I require from you is that you graduate from high school. So that's what kind of gave him the motivation. And he basically went from barely being able to read and write, cleaning machinery in factories, and long story short, just retired last summer from a Fortune 500 company as a vice president. So with just a high school degree, you know what I mean? So I totally have love and respect for that, you know what I mean? And I think when you grow up in not only just an Italian kind of family, but you grow up in these little tougher towns, cities, you know what I mean? It builds a certain character, that maybe some of these other people that, who were in Franklin Lakes and things like that, were wealthier towns, that grew up in that lifestyle, when the market crashes and something like that happens, they may not have the balls, for lack of a better, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have that hustle, you know what I mean? That grind, that street sensibility that says, listen, I gotta make my money, I gotta go out there and hustle.
Yeah, no matter what.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have an issue when, say, something's beneath them, some type of work is beneath them, which is okay, but in times of when you're desperate, when you're desperate, nothing should be beneath, no work should really be beneath you.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
And so she went through that, and me seeing that as a kid gave me a lot of motivation. That was another kick of motivation to say, you know what, I never want to see, I never want to put my mother through that, see her go through that again, or my father, because it was a rough time financially. And then after that, she met a guy named Andrew, and the market was covering, met Andrew, he was an oral surgeon, and Andrew, we moved into a house in Franklin Lakes. Andrew taught me a lot he got me into acting.
Oh, cool.
And he taught me a lot about, pushing me to, he taught me a lot about that visualization I was talking about, but he actually put it in words. And he taught me to think very highly of myself. You need to think highly of yourself. I have a lot of self-confidence. He tell me, oh, you're the best. Which is not how I grew up, especially, I'm sure you could relate. Italian parents, Andrew was Jewish. Italian parents aren't like Jewish parents.
Yeah.
They're a little harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little harder.
We had the wooden spoon.
Yeah. I think, to be honest with you, I think both parenting tactics at the end of the day, put together with the right kid, it'll work. And I think they're both nice ways of parenting. But I got a taste of both with this guy. Him and my mother ended up not working out, which was, that's fine. It happens. I learned in life that it doesn't always work out.
Mm-hmm.
They're on good terms. And one thing I really might admire about my mother, and I try to do the same with any of my relationships, is when you break up with someone, always be on good terms.
Yeah.
Always be on good terms. Because when you share that emotional connection with somebody,
mm-hmm.
you always want to make sure that you're on good terms, because you don't want to hurt like that, knowing that you guys don't get along anymore. So that inspired my mother. And with you, your parents are still together, as you said, right, Frankie?
Yeah. It's like
30
something years. God bless them.
No, yeah, that's amazing. And I think you and I have similar backgrounds from where our parents came from. And there's something about that Italian way of growing up that really teaches you how to, when you step into that professional world, you say, wow, I've already been equipped with the mental tools to become successful. Would you agree? I mean, it seems like...
No, definitely. We're, it's just probably something about our culture, you know what I mean? Like we were, we came here, we were hustlers, you know what I mean? We had to make a way. We had to make $1 out of 15 cents type of mentality. And that kind of, for people who are, grew up in the Italian culture, that's something that we sustain throughout the generations, you know what I mean? We no matter how times and cultures evolve, we're very much about tradition. We're very much about family. We're very much about like respect and dignity and holding yourself, to, with a respectable outlook, you know what I mean? Regardless of what you do, whether you're flipping burgers at McDonald's or you're a housewife or you're grinding and you're making millions of dollars, it's always something I think that we're instilled that, you do it with dignity and respect, because not only are you I mean, for me, I can only say, like, it was about holding dignity for yourself, but keeping that, we're family, so holding respect to how you're portraying your family, you know what I mean? Like, you have a duty besides, I mean, I come from a little older school, but there was a duty, but like, do your thing, but when you're out there doing your thing, remember that you're representing a family here, you know what I mean? And we do it with dignity and respect, so you go out there and do it with dignity and respect, So, I mean, that's how I was raised anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Frankie. I think when you speak to somebody, I think you and I really, have a good connection here when it comes to the speaking, because we do have similar backgrounds, and I think it's really cool. It's a really cool thing, and what you're doing with this podcast. You know, what I mean, this is the way you've contacted me, and you are very professional. You guys are very professional on Normalized.
Yeah, well, you know what? I always believe in what I can sense from you, Frank, is, and from your family, is if you're going to do something, do it to the whole 9 yards. You know what I mean? Like, regardless if it's, I mean, look at, let's go back to, like, when you were saying in high school you were a young entrepreneur selling sandwiches. You know what I mean? You did it in a way where you were looking at, I mean, just from what I can gather, you were looking at it, you weren't looking at it like these are just sandwiches. You know what I mean? Like, it's about marketing, it's about the sales behind it, it's about selling a product, no matter what that product is, and that right there is, what you have to do it. I think young people nowadays, or not even young people, just people in general, they kind of expect things to be handed to them when there is a less likelihood for things to be successful if you're not putting 100% into it, and that's, how old are you, Frank? You're how old?
I'm 20.
You're 20.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, I don't feel like I'm speaking to a 20-year-old. I'm 43, and I can tell you I speak to people all the time, and I wish at 20 that I had the head on my shoulders that you do. You know what I mean?
Thank you, Frank.
And no, yeah, I call it like I see it, and I think this is going to be a really powerful podcast episode beyond just talking to you because you've been in a movie and you've done acting and your family's on one of the biggest reality shows. There's going to be, and I'm not like, I'm not like psychic or anything like that, but you can tell that you're going to have a sustainability, and this is probably not the last that we hear of Frank Catania, because at 20, you are doing things that some people have not even done or thought about in their entire lifetime. You know what I mean? So doing it at 20, like, that's mind-blowing for me, because whatever your parents did, they're raising a young guy who is going out in the world and doing some badass things and you're only 20 years old,
Thanks, Frank. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's, this is a testament to, like, the family structure and things like that with all that stuff that's going around your family, that you guys can still maintain a really good family structure, and that your parents can raise a young guy that's definitely got a good head on his shoulders. So, like, what is that like, Frank? Let's talk about now. Your family is how is your family approach to be on the show? Was it?
Oh, okay, yeah. So we were approached. My mom was approached when I was younger to be on the show. Turned down the show because she said, turned down the show in the midst of, being hurting very bad financially for my sister and I because we were so young.
Yeah.
So turned down the show. Next thing you know, I shoot my movie. Sophomore year comes around. My mom is, and the show comes to see her again. They say, "Hey, Dolores, we're looking for new people on the show." My mom, she is a humble Italian woman, like an old humble Italian woman. What am I gonna? We spoke about it. I was sophomore year. My sister was off at college. Remember, we sit down and we're talking about it. She goes, "How am I supposed to be on the show? Who's gonna what do I have to offer? I go, everything. You have one of the most amazing stories I have ever seen in my life. You have gone from the bottom to the top while keeping your humility from the bottom." I said, you belong on that show and you could do whatever you want. Next thing you know, she goes and auditions in the city. They come, and an audition isn't even an audition. It's like, because it's reality TV, so it's almost like it's an interview.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you know these women? What do you, you know what I mean? And the interview process, they came to the house. They just saw how we acted on camera, and they took a chance. They said, we like the family. And people ask me all the time, "Oh, is it really reality TV?" Yeah, it's really reality TV. It's really reality. I know for the New Jersey franchise, I don't know about the rest of them, it is reality. And the things that you see on TV, I hear my mother speak about them off camera. It's their lives.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's I love the show. I love the franchise. We're a big Bravo TV family here, so it's good to hear, because you hear a lot about things being, and that's the misconception about reality TV, is that everything is scripted and it's prompted by producers. So it's good to hear an insider kind of say, like, what we're seeing on TV is actually what happens in real life. So, but before you go on, which I find really interesting is that you made your movie before your mom even went on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and my mother lived in LA for about 4 or 5 months.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And we lived in LA for about 4 or 5 months before the housewives came to her. And I was kind of the first. I pray a lot. I say a lot of prayers. And it was just, it was crazy to think at that time when I'm shooting my movie that, trying to really make a name for myself, become something. The woman sitting next to me all day and living with me and my mother would end up actually, becoming a star.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. I mean, what she really has, a lot of people don't understand. My mother goes out and she gets swarmed by people.
Oh, I can imagine.
Swarmed by people, but that's kind of how it works. So
yeah,
came to the house.
Yeah, I mean that's what when you put yourself in that. I call it a fishbowl almost because it's like not a normalized kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like it's one thing like yourself who was pursuing an acting career and maybe getting some, like an actor getting attention because of that, because of a character they play or something like that. But it's one thing when there is no character, you know what I mean? Like, it's all about you know what I mean? So, like, people will generally either fall in love with you or love to hate you, you know what I mean? And I think your mom actually, and I don't want to turn this into a podcast about your mom because this is about you, but I think that, that it's really interesting because people like who will follow you should know that, you were in the game before mom even stepped out into the spotlight. You know what I mean? Like, so before we go on, tell me about how did the movie come your way?
Okay, so I was a sophomore. I started acting freshman year. I went to Stellar Adler School of Acting.
Okay.
After that, started auditioning for stuff through a friend. I met the producer of the director of the movie, but before it came out, I just met him. And as he was filming the movie, he said, "Hey, that kid I met in the city, his daughter's a big star on Disney, and I co-starred with her in the movie." And he said, "Hey, that kid I met in the city, I'd like him to audition for this part." So I went with him. He saw my acting, and he liked me. Gave me the opportunity to be in the movie, and that was one of the most wild experiences of my life. Honestly,
now, how old were you? Sophomore year, right?
I just turned 16. I just turned 16, and next thing you know, we're an Italian family. Although we could have, we just didn't leave the country much. We traveled to Miami. We went to down the shore. Okay, that was our vacation. And we went to Jamaica once. That was our vacations because we're more, I don't know, we're not like the biggest travelers, which we should be. So next thing you know, obviously California's in the country, and I was going to live there for 4 or 5 months. So my family gave me a nice going away party, and me and my mother went together to California. She came with me. She believed in me, and we got there and we started filming the movie. All these kids are seasoned actors at the time, and I was not. I was some, skinny Jersey kid who wasn't a seasoned actor, and next thing you know, these gigantic cameras are on my face, and I'm on $1 million set. One set, and I step on the set, and I remember these kids, the first line I gave, these kids start laughing, because I was so nervous, These kids start laughing, and I bet you can only imagine what that did to myself because I'm already nervous.
Yeah.
The first line I did in practice, they start laughing. So my mother, she said, just listen, ignore it. You keep working hard. You listen to the director, and just believe in yourself and be natural. As the movie went on. Unfortunately, the co-stars and I got along with a few of them, but the rest, we didn't gel well together. But the movie came out pretty nicely, and the acting was good between the kids. Did some great acting. David DeLuise was, I started it with him as well. He was a great guy.
I actually saw the movie. It was pretty good. I'm glad that you brought the relationship up because what I was going to say was that what struck me about the film was that out of that cast, and if this was now looking back at watching the movie, if this was your first, film experience, you didn't look like it was your first film. I would say you were like one of the standout where it felt like there was a craft there behind it. You know what I mean? Like, and I was thoroughly impressed because I'm like, wow, I think this is his first film, and it didn't look like that. I even think I went to your like Wikipedia and IMDb and stuff like that just to see if there was something else that you did. You know what I mean? Because I was like, whoa, I didn't take it as a first time actor's kind of film role. So when you say that there was, some, initial getting your feet wet to all this and finding your groove and stuff, Frank, it didn't look like it at all.
I appreciate that.
That just comes from natural ability and talent. You know what I mean? Like, you can go to acting school, but when the craft is there, you know what I mean? When it's flowing through your veins, all that stuff, school, like, training and all that goes, like, that's just more layers on top of it,
Yeah.
And yeah, so like, I was definitely impressed that it was your first film, and definitely.
I appreciate that. It was hard. It was hard being so green and being there, So, I'll tell you, when I was out there, I remember we got a week off of filming, and I planned a Hollywood tour, through the hills, like a tourist. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so I planned this tour, go see the houses, and when I went up there, I knew what I wanted in my life, which was to one day be something and live there, because I love Hollywood. That was one of my favorite places.
Yeah.
It's such a great place. And so that whole experience in California motivated me so much to try and make something great of myself, so I could also make a difference. I have a lot of philanthropy projects that I would love to do, and me and my mother do now. She's fantastic with that stuff, when the animals and the kids. She's great.
Yeah.
But so the movie finishes. It was fantastic. The co-stars. I was the only one on the show, on the movie, who had no recognition. I mean, I'd never been on anything. Between the two girls who was on the show, they were starred in 2 major movies and TV shows. The one kid who was on with me, who had never been in anything crazy, got his own show right after the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of the only kid who had never really didn't have much,
Mm-hmm.
when it came to much to my name. And then next year, the Housewives thing comes out. I remember before the show came out, I said to myself when I found out my mother was going to be on the show, I said, it's time to get in the gym. I got back, but when I got back to that movie, is when I really started getting to the gym, because I was very upset how small I was, and I couldn't play football anymore. It definitely was killer. It didn't feel great. So that's how I ended up getting in the gym. But back to how the show started and everything. Yeah, so that's that. And we started filming on a show, and we loved it. The producers are great. They're really nice. My mom works really hard. It's a lot of work for her. And A World Away was fantastic, and I'm very happy with how that turned out. On Amazon Prime and Netflix right now. So.
Yep. And that is, I go back to it. It's like, funny that that's something that people would know about you, is that, your beginnings came before the Housewives series.
Yeah.
And, and it's a unique experience for you guys as a family. Like, how does that, coming from a family where, like, family is everything, and, again, not to keep talking about Italian culture, but, we're very protective of our own, you know what I mean? So, like, how do you find, like, the balance of, because your family, especially your mom, you know what I mean, you're under that microscope, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think your mom, out of everybody who, I don't want to say, I'm sure you guys your family has relationships with the other housewives on the show and their families, but, it must be tough to have your family scrutinized, you know what I mean? Like, under that microscope, like, how do you guys stay so grounded when you have all this kind of chatter about every single thing that you guys do? Now you guys are being recognized out there in the world, especially in the Jersey community, you know what I mean? Like, you guys are out there, and now, like, how does a family manage that? You know what I mean? Like, I can't, I couldn't even imagine.
So we kind of just, within each other, we know what's real, what's not. We know what's real and what's not. And if someone's got a problem, the way we've always been, someone's got a problem with something, honestly, we don't really care.
Yeah.
We don't really care. If someone's got a problem with us or something on the show, that's great. You can have your problem. We don't really care. And at the end of the day, we know the reality. Probably the hardest thing that I saw was the fact that my dad was disbarred from being a lawyer on the show.
Yeah.
That was probably the hardest thing we had to go through, just because I love my father so much. My father is mentally, and obviously physically, the guy's a tank, but mentally one of the toughest guys that I know. When he called me up from when he found out he got disbarred. I mean, this guy just, like, the way he is unbelievable. His resiliency is unbelievable. I mean, it's weird because I try to ask him, Dad, how do you have this? I really don't even think he doesn't put that much mental thought into it. Just the way he is. He's a tough guy, and if something slaps in the face, he gets right back up and he keeps going. He's a hard worker, grind. Honestly, I think he'll never retire from working because he loves it. But his resiliency, he doesn't let something knock him down ever. Yeah. And if it does, he has something right back there that he could use to back him up and recover.
Yeah.
My dad's all about recovery if something goes wrong, all about doing things to the extreme, all about going the whole 9 yards that we talked about earlier. And I learn a lot from him. And one thing I will tell you that is very inspiring that my father does is when something goes wrong, he's ready to get right back up. He could get, slapped in the face by life. The guy will get right back up. And when I do bad on a test or something, or, something goes wrong in my life relationship-wise, and I feel, it's terrible and I'm all upset, my father I'll call him up, ask him for advice. He just says, well, you get up, you keep moving on. That's it. Yep. You get up, you keep going. So that was the hardest thing is I don't like people coming up to me and being like, oh, what's your father? Like, you guys need anything? Okay. I respect it. Thank you very much to people that want to do that. But listen, if you really knew my father, you'd know that it's just fine. It's just fine. Yeah. It's just fine. Right.
And I actually glad that you brought it up. I don't like to how I roll as a host is I don't force people to, some other people you may go on their shows or like your mom or someone like your mom or your dad, and their immediate thing is to go to a place like that, like, oh, how was it, when you got disbarred and blah, 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 well, like, what happened? I allow my guests to talk about what they want to talk about. So
yeah, listen, you go ahead. You ask me anything, really.
And I come from the adage that if, you bring it up on my show, and then that opens up a conversation that organically kind of happens. So, like, I'm kind of, like, that's what I was thinking about, honestly, when I was, thinking about, talking about with you, like, that whole part of it, because I knew that was such a, that's a big thing, you know what I mean? Like, and to have it on TV, but I think that you guys, how I took it from watching the series is that you guys, your dad, your mom, you guys just kind of like yeah, this happened, but let's keep it moving. You know what I mean? Let's,
That's right. Yeah,
let's just, keep going. And that's totally, I can identify with that because, if I was to make that phone call like you would to your dad, my dad would say the same thing. Like, okay, it is what it is, and you can't change things, and but what are you gonna do? Keep it moving. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how. And I think that goes back to that. I mean, I don't know where did your dad grow up?
Yeah. No, my dad actually grew up in North Elm, where we grew up now.
Okay.
He grew up. His father was more well off. His father was a lawyer, like he was.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandfather, my dad's side, the guy is just straight as an arrow. You know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm.
he does everything right. He's very patriotic man. And my dad kind of grew up a rebel. Not a rebel, but he wasn't. Listen, the stories I hear wasn't the best kid.
Yeah.
He was a good kid, but the trouble that he would get into is just unbelievable stuff where I would be like, oh my dad, that's outrageous. The stories he would tell me. And so his father was very hard on him though, and my dad grew up hard too. His father was really, really hard on him.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad definitely went through some rough times as a kid, and I think living in that environment where his father was hard on him,
mm-hmm.
and basically if something would go, he would tell me stories where if something would go wrong, my grandpa would be like, listen, get over it. You don't have time. There's no time to have anxiety about it, be upset about it. Get over it immediately and go move on. And that was it. My father took that, and I think that's so. It's like, for example, you get a bad grade in a test, and you have a great excuse about it, and something really did go wrong, or you got sick during a test. That's your fault. Too bad.
Yeah.
That's your fault.
Yeah.
And make sure, I don't care. Make sure it's better next time. My dad was a great football player too, and that's how that works. And my dad took that mentality into bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. Undefeated bodybuilder. He took that mentality into real estate. Took that mentality into everything he did.
And that's why, like, something like what your dad went through would, if you don't have that, Frank, that's going to break you down. And if you're not strong mentally, and your dad's a big guy physically, of course he's stamina, like, you know what I mean, like that. But the mental part of it, where it could really break someone down, and then they're not going to be able to move forward from it, and and that's going to help you as your dad's son. That's why you're at 20 years old thinking on the level that you are, you know what I mean, and have the vision of your life because of both your parents and the veracity that they have for, just getting out there and doing what you have to do, not only to make $1. Look, that's great, but like do it with passion for something that you want to do. You know what I mean, and what you love. And so what also intrigued me about your story is like to go back to the beginning when you were saying like how you have all this creative stuff going on, the acting stuff, you're doing, bodybuilding stuff, you've done some modeling stuff, correct?
Yeah, I've done fitness. I've actually done very, very well with modeling. On the cover now, I think it's 15 romance novels in the past year. So.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool as hell.
Thank you.
That's awesome. You mean like on like the cover, like?
Yeah,
like,
on the cover, like the guy on the cover of a romance novel. Yeah,
like some Fabio shit.
Yeah, that's right. Right now I'm at 15 covers right now. So.
Wow, do your thing, son. Do your thing. I'm not even mad at you.
Yeah, I've done well with that and acting, and right now primarily focusing. I'm looking to of course, the acting stuff and the modeling stuff is there, but I looking to go into a career in investment banking.
That's where I was going with this. That's where I was going with this. The dream is to get into that financial realm. So investment banking. I am not a numbers person. Actually, my wife works in finance, so I call her my CFO. So she's the one. She's the one that approves or denies all the funds that go to all this little podcast and all that kind of stuff. So you're current. What year are you in? You're still in college, right?
Yeah, I'm junior year of college, and that's the kind of part of my life not a lot of people know about, the financial aspect, which is kind of a huge part of my life. Junior year of college, I'm a major in finance and data analytics, which basically is like computer coding for Python.
Okay.
Which is a financial literacy and the coding. I'm just starting to get into that, but I'm going to try to pick up a double major in finance and data analytics, which is this coding. And I want to go into investment banking. This summer I internship at Skybridge Capital, which is Anthony Scaramucci's place.
Nice.
So he was my boss this summer, and I learned a lot from him too. I learned a lot from that guy too, and so I love that environment. I love throwing a suit on, wake up at 5 a.m, take the bus in, try to get to work as early as I could, get into work, and just grind out through the day, and go home when the work's done, and do it again the next day. And I'd go home and list, and that was a crazy schedule to go on. I have a very close group of friends who support everything I do. Very close group of friends.
That's important.
I grew up with all of them. We all grew up together, and I'll tell you, my friends, it's easy as you get into high school and stuff to lose your individuality and so you see so many people doing things, and you want to kind of follow the crowd because you don't know what you're doing is correct.
Yeah.
My friends, and my one best friend. I have all my best friends: Quinn, Doug, Peter, all these guys in the whole group. We have a big friend group. We go hang out. What we do is actually they support everything I do, and they really reinforce my individuality. To be an individual. Like I have a metal detector. I do some strange things. That's some strange things I do, and all these guys, they really, really, really support my individuality and to be my own person.
Well, that's important, especially when you have a crew of guys that your boys, and it's easy to want to fit a mold or a perception or a stereotype. But when you can just be yourself amongst your boys and have that support and have some a group of guys or girls or whatever to have your back, especially in the situation that you're in, which is very unique. It's good to always have that core people behind you that can keep you grounded. You know what I mean? In all this, because it's easy. Some young people like yourself, Frank, if they were in this situation, it's easy for them to lose themselves in it. I mean, I've seen some of these reality show TV people and acting folks that, that they're losing themselves in that whole sphere of the glitz and the glamour and all that kind of stuff. So it's great to have people that are anchoring you down so you can focus on stuff I think that's commendable, where you have a passion for that business, that entrepreneurship that you really want, you're not sacrificing for. You know what I mean? And so tell us, Frank, what do you have? We know that you're trying to get into the investment banking world and all that kind of stuff. What can we, whether it be creatively or your entrepreneurship stuff that you have going on, what are some things that we're going to be seeing out of Frank Catania coming, in the near future?
Well, listen, right now I'm let's see. I got a lot going on right now. So, obviously, World Away just came out. Be auditioning, looking for new roles and stuff. My primary aspects right now is just school. We got the Housewives show coming out soon. We're finished filming for that. That's going to be a great season. You know, been options trading a lot. I'd like to have my own firm one day, so I've been working towards kind of just how I'm going to structure that. And mostly, right now, looking for an investment banking internship and training for bodybuilding nationals for this summer.
Well, see, I mean, busy guy, and you got all good things coming up. So, how does in the midst of all that, you know, how does Frank? What do you do to kind of keep yourself, like, you know, you got all this stuff going on. It's hard to manage time when you have so many different projects coming up. What does Frank do? Like, do you like music? Do you like watch movies, TV, go on that? Like, what do you do to keep yourself, like, you know, not caught up?
I actually have a metal detector. I have a big passion for history. And I have a metal detector, and I go around historical areas of Connecticut, and I'm uncovering, you know, colonial artifacts and 1800s, 1900s artifacts. Kind of just that's my hobby. I go around collecting all this stuff, and I donate to museums if I find something significant, you know.
What? You're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of anybody doing that. That's so interesting. Like, how did you get into that?
Well, I was at Nan's house one day, and I remember I was looking for something to do, and I just go in her closet, next thing you know, this metal detector falls down. What is this thing? And I just went outside and started swinging it around. I remember I found a nail, and I was just like, wow. Like, I cannot believe that I just found something under the ground that I couldn't see. Fell in love with it. I've been doing it since I was 12 years old, trying to master, you know, because there's a lot that goes into it. And I found some pretty great stuff. I still do it to this day. Whenever I have a little bit of free time, I'll hop in my car, and what I do is I use I use satellite to detect indentations in the ground, and then I go in the woods, use satellite in the woods to detect indentations in the ground, map it out how to get there, and then I go, and a lot of times, if you're good enough, you could see a certain type of indentation in the earth is an old colonial foundation that's still there. So I go find those areas, and I've done some great stuff. I went to St. Kitts. Probably one of my best finds is I went to St. Kitts, and I found from the 1500s, a piece off I think a chest plate of, could have been a conquistador that decided to go to the Caribbean. I have no idea.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was...
So you talk about, like, well, we talk about UNnormalized shit. This is pretty fucking cool. Like, I mean, like, I'm totally into stuff like, you know, historical stuff, and so that's like mind-blowing, like, that, you know, like, you can do something, now that's really outside, you talk outside of the box, that's outside of the box, but you're also, like, successful at doing it, you know what I mean? So, wow, so add that to, like, the resume of some pretty impressive things, you know, I'm totally, like, digging that. That's pretty cool. I love that. You know, I'm all about trying to find different things. I always am trying, like, because I work with people. I'm by day I'm a social worker and a life coach. So I always kind of tap into people to find out, like, what do you do to stay centered and grounded? And I always will try whatever, if it's something that I've never done before, I'll always try what the person has, you know, utilized as a tool for themselves. So, like, I've picked up knitting, I've picked up...
Wow, it's fantastic.
playing the ukulele. Like I've, tried all these things, because how could I say to you, Frank, if, you're looking for something to kind of keep you grounded and centered, and I say, oh, try, looking for artifacts using a metal detector, if I've never done it before. You know what I mean? Like, so I love learning about things that are outside of the box that people do, not only career-wise and being successful, but for themselves, you know what I mean? Because ultimately, without nourishing who we are as a human going through this life journey, that's kind of the foundation that allows you to open up these doors to all the things that you're doing, which, I can't commend you enough. As a parent, I can only imagine how proud your parents are of you, because you don't meet people like you nowadays, Frank. You know what I mean? I really respect your mindset. You seem like you have a good head on your shoulders. You have a lot of things going on that are moving in the right direction. And, I'm glad that we sat down and talked today, because I really want young people who are listening to this to get the message that you're giving here. And that's with strong support systems, a vision. I think you started off this whole conversation that we had today with
everything.
Yeah, with you need to have the vision. So I really, and not only the vision, but the determination to turn those visions and those ideas into tangible concepts, like, you know what I mean, that you can see developing into however you want it to go for yourself. I really respect you. I have to tell you, before I let you go, I have to tell you a funny story about your mom. So I live in Point Pleasant Beach, and I drive down 34 to go home every day from my job. Don't think anything of it. One day I'm driving down 34, and there's a huge billboard of your mom. That is, and I'm like, and it's like almost close to getting into Point Pleasant. So I have a commute that I do every day. So now it's funny, because when I say, oh, there's Dolores, I know that I'm almost home.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful face that I get to kind of like see every day. And now knowing your story and your family behind you, like a lot behind of what where you come from and your mom and all that kind of stuff. And you can convey this to her from me, like, now I'll look at that billboard so totally different, because I'll know that when I see your mom's face on that billboard and I'm coming home, that means that I did my hustle for the day. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
I like that. That's a great story.
Somebody that has gone through the grind, and for their family, I'll be able to see that billboard and say, okay, it makes sense. I'm tired today. I had a long commute or whatever it is, but this is why I do, because of my family, and so you can convey that story for your mom. That I hope they never take I hope they never take the billboard down. But
thank you.
It'll be now a different connection for me than just being a billboard with your mom's face on it.
Yes, Frankie, thank you very much. And I'll tell you, what you just said to me, that's basically kind of summarizing everything I said, made me very happy, because it shows that I want to make sure, coming onto your podcast, I can really convey who I am, what's important to me, and the things that have worked for me to get me to where I am, and the things that I need to work on better to get even further, or where I want to be. And it really seems like I conveyed that to you from what you've told me, so far, and I'm very happy.
Loud and clear, buddy, loud and clear. And I really now am a fan of Frank Catania, so I will, when I meet pretty cool people that, like, and that's what's cool about this, like, I get to talk to, and I have some pretty, like, impressive guests coming on. and it's just so cool to just have a conversation, you know, and I think we've lost that a lot, you know what I mean? Like, just a human connection conversation with people, because there's so much negativity and division and shit going on out there that we've lost that human interaction, you know what I mean? Like, that conversation where two dudes can just sit down and talk about, like, growing up family, Italian style in Jersey, and make that connection. And then through that connection, there's a journey for that person on the other side of the conversation. And I thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, buddy. I really
Thank you,
wish you nothing but the best and success and everything that you do. And I want you to always feel like you have a home here at the UNnormalized podcast. So anything you got coming up, anything mom, dad, you guys are doing as a family that maybe we can be on, you know what I mean? Like, just having you guys as a family, and talking about keeping a family unit, whatever that looks like, you know what I mean? This is 2019. Everybody doesn't have to have a mom and dad that are married like myself and stay together. You can still be a family, and whatever that dynamic looks like for the family, very individual. So I want you and your family to always kind of have this as a home where you can convey a message to people that, you know, that it's to be humble and stay grounded in, and what you guys continuously do to kind of keep that going. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
No problem, buddy. So Frank, tell everybody out there how they can keep along with your journey, social media, websites, all that kind of stuff.
So I have Instagram, primary social media outlet I use. That's Frank at Frank.Catania. And I also have a Snapchat as well. You know, that's at Frank.Catania as well. You also want to do a shout out to my friends Quinn, Doug, CJ, Peter, Zach, Mike, Brandon, Chad, and Luke as well. So you guys are the best. And Frankie, you were fantastic, and I think this podcast is really going to go places. You have a specialty of listening, letting me speak, and elaborating on what I say, and really getting to know the guests the best. So thank you very much.
Awesome, buddy. I really appreciate that. I always want the guest message to be heard out there, so that's why we do this, you know, so people can really hear the message. So everybody out there, I want you to follow Frank on his social media, Instagram, Snapchat, and we want to really thank you guys for tuning in to the UNnormalized podcast with Frank Catania, and we want you guys to subscribe, so you don't miss any episodes of the UNnormalized podcast. And we really appreciate Frank coming on today. And Frank, I hope you have a great day, and go out there and take that world by the balls, and keep us posted of what's going on, buddy. Okay?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, and tune into the new season of Housewives coming up soon.
Absolutely. We all will be in watching. So, guys, that's the UNnormalized podcast for today. We want you to stay tuned for more episodes coming up. So subscribe and stay unnormalized.
Yeah. Della Guido, della Ginze. Dilo Francis.